Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFS Report. It is Tuesday, March 25th. Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday afternoon. We have a large 10-game slate on our hands this evening. I'm not going to waste too much time. I'll just quickly say hi to Zach. Zach, how are you doing on this Tuesday? Are you excited to break down this 10-gamer?
Hi, Brock. Super excited to build 15 Tampa 1 lineups and 5 Colorado 1 lineups.
There you go. All right. I think show's over. Let's see you tomorrow. Okay. We got Petr Kochetkov getting the start for the Carolina Hurricanes. It'll be most likely UC Saros for the Nashville Predators. Andrei Svechnikov still out for Carolina. Buffalo Sabres had James Reimer in the starters crease this morning, but then Lindy Ruff would not confirm whether or not he's getting the start tonight. I think somebody should remind him that they are dead last in the Eastern Conference, and this shit does not matter for them. So just tell us who started. But anyways, Anton Forsberg gets the start for the Ottawa Senators. Brady Tkachuk good to go for Ottawa. Yuri Kulich back in the lineup for Buffalo, but no Josh Norris still, and Jordan Greenway's out. Andrei Vasilevsky likely to get the start for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They will put Point, Gensel, and Kucherov back together tonight. Pittsburgh Penguins will go with Tristan Jarry. It'll be Anthony Stellaris most likely for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It'll be Sam Arison for the Philadelphia Flyers. The Winnipeg Jets will go with most likely go with Connor Hellebuyck up against the Washington Capitals, who will counter with Logan Thompson. I believe the last time these two teams met and these two goalies started, it was like, oh yeah, this is likely to be the lowest scoring game ever, and it was 6-5 if I recall correctly. Injury news for the Jets. Gabe Villardy's out week to week. Alex Iafallo moved to the top line. More about him later in the show. Jordan Binnington gets a start for the St. Louis Blues. It'll be Sam Montembeault for the Montreal Canadiens. Most likely going to see Marc-Andre Fleury returning to the Vegas, or I guess not returning to Vegas because it's in Minnesota, but facing his former team in Vegas. Aiden Hill likely to get the start for the Golden Knights. It'll be Mackenzie Blackwood for the Colorado Avalanche. Cam Talbot likely to get the start for the Detroit Red Wings. Peter Mrazek started yesterday, made it through about half a shift, left the game. Alex Lyon came in and played well, but they said with the ice conditions as bad as they were last night, it was a difficult game for Lions. They're going to probably give them the night off tonight against the Avs. So likely going to see Cam Talbot. It'll be Dustin Wolf for the Calgary Flames. It's basically just we never know who starts for Seattle anymore. We are projecting to see Joey Decor, but could just as easily be Philip Grubauer. It's likely going to be Darcy Kemper for the LA Kings, and we are projecting to see Igor Shesterkin tonight. I've seen some rumblings that potentially Jonathan Quick, obviously back in LA tonight. That could be another potential game for him tonight, but with the way things are going down the stretch here for them, I would imagine, fighting for the playoff lives, we're going to see Igor between the pipes. So we shall see there with the Rangers goalie. So let's get in. There might be some small errors with the Winnipeg Washington lines. Oh no, did I mix them up again? I've done that before. Let me see. No, they look good to me. Oh, Brandon Tanev's on the top line for the Capitals. That's good. All right. I will fix that while we're on the show. Luckily, that's like middle of the pack, so I will fix those. Thanks for the heads up. Let's dive into tonight's slate. We've got this first game here, Carolina and Nashville. The Hurricanes are minus 279 home favorites, 2.2 implied total for the Nashville Predators. Matchup-wise, this game, really, really good for Carolina 1, really good for Carolina 3. Also going to be what looks to be the highest event game of the night. Pretty bad matchups across the board for the Nashville Predators. We don't usually play the Predators much at all. We usually definitely don't play them on the road. So probably not going to be a lot of Nashville for me. But Carolina 1 looks like it's in a super interesting spot tonight. These underlying metrics are simply fantastic. 4.2 expected goals, 4 per 60, 4 goals per 60, 44 scoring chances, 18.6 high danger chances are all splendid numbers, and then they're going to see 72% of the ice time up against Nashville 2, which not very good defensive numbers there. So Carolina 1, certainly one of the lines that intrigues me the most tonight. We've got Seth Jarvis at $7,500, Sebastian Aho at $7,200. So both very expensive. Jackson Blake's been somebody that I've been one-offing a lot lately, especially because he was on Power Play 1 for a while. He's actually going to get bumped off Power Play 1 tonight. A lot of games going on tonight, so my memory escapes me. Logan Stankoven expected to move back up to Power Play 1 this evening. Jackson Blake on Power Play 2. So still think Blake's a fine play at $4,700. That line is the one that intrigues me the most, obviously, from the Carolina side of things. They graded it as the third best line of target tonight, but we know that Minnesota is just fake. So they're technically the second best line of target, in my opinion. And it's $19,400. It's somewhat pricey, but I think obviously with this matchup being as good as it is, I'm pretty interested in Carolina 1. I know, Zach, you're a big Carolina 3 guy. With Stankoven getting the move up to top power play tonight, I think it makes them a little bit more viable tonight. Him specifically at $4,400, I think is a nice one-off option if you don't want a full stack Carolina 3. Their matchup with Nashville 1 is really, really solid. Nashville 1 hasn't been all that great defensively. We know how good Carolina 3's been. They've been really, really solid with Stankoven. Their numbers are actually better than what you see here. Just it's too small of a sample size for me to use. So I don't know on a 10-game slate if I'm going to get to a lot of Carolina 3, but I'm definitely interested in getting some Stankoven in the mix tonight, especially with the bump to power play 1. Speaking of power play 1, their power play continues to struggle mightily, so it probably doesn't provide too big of a boost. This is the 2 best penalty kills over the last 10 games in one. So, Zach, what are your thoughts here on the Carolina side of things while I go try to fix some of the charts here?
Yeah, it looks like a great spot here for Carolina 1 and 3. I'll probably be getting to some of both of these lines. I'm a Carolina 3 truther, and they grade out as the 22nd best line to target overall on the slate. Obviously, really low ownership coming in here on these guys. Logan Stankoven, obviously still new to the Carolina Hurricanes. Feels like he's kind of trying to find his way still maintaining a little bit of that shot volume, 7.9 shots on goal per hour over his last 20 games. 3 apples in 2 games played against the Carolina Hurricanes. Can he carry that success over that he's had against Nashville to his time here in Carolina? That remains to be seen. I know I'm definitely going to be getting there on this third line. Martin and Stahl maybe haven't been as hot as they've been at times throughout the season, but in terms of salary saver lines, they're going to be right up there for me if I'm looking to save some money on this slate here tonight. So I have no issue getting there with this third line. I'll definitely get there on the top line, probably a little bit over the field too, right? I mean, projecting as the third best line to target overall on this slate tonight, and really small ownership coming in on these guys on Carolina 1. There's obviously some other really solid spots here on this slate tonight, but at $19,400, it doesn't feel like a number that's too scary for me to get to or anything like that. Obviously Jackson Blake at $4,700 helps keep that salary down a little bit for a full stack there. And speaking of Jackson Blake, I mean, this is a guy who is absolutely due to score some goals here. Over his last 20 games played, he hasn't scored a single goal, but he's generated 1.4 individual expected goals per hour of ice time. So this is a guy, 8.5 shots on goal per hour, getting a lot of looks, getting a lot of quality looks as well. And for this Carolina line going up against that second line of the Nashville Predators, it seems like a pretty good spot. I mean, that line is giving up a lot of high danger chances against here on a pretty regular basis as of late. So I have no issue getting there here on this Carolina 1 line. They look like a great spot here tonight. Obviously, Jarvis and Aho have continued to play strong hockey here. Aho, probably on a little bit of a heater right now, shooting 23% over his last 20 games versus about 15% on the season. Seth Jarvis kind of the other way. I mean, he's still scoring goals at a good clip here as of late, 1.4 goals per hour over his last 20 games, but he's still only shooting like 8%. So this line as a whole, it feels like there's some more offense to kind of give here. From these 3 guys, even though, Aho and Jarvis have still been solid here over this last little stretch. So this feels like a really nice spot to get to this Carolina line. I'm going to continue to try and ramble here until Brock gives me the all clear.
You're fine. We can move on. I'm going to have to keep plugging away as we go here, so you don't have to ramble on too much about Carolina. Any interest on the Nashville side of things here? Because, I agree. Carolina 1 feels great. Carolina 3 feels like a great value, but Nashville is a team that I don't really have much interest in. Still not generating much at 5v5. The power plays really struggled. Not struggled, but it hasn't been great or anything. And we just talked about how good the PKs are. So I'll probably dabble in Carolina 1 and 3 with no Nashville exposure. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think I'll be getting to any Nashville here on this slate. Probably play some of the defensemen as I like to do on a regular basis. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to get to this forward group. They're struggling to score goals here as of late, obviously generating a fair amount of expected goals. But this Carolina team, they're just so good. I just don't see a way that this Nashville team is going to have a ton of success or win you a slate tonight.
No, probably pretty unlikely for Nashville to be an absolute nuke spot tonight. Buffalo and Ottawa is an interesting game. Buffalo, they're kind of out of it in a way. They're obviously out of it in the standings. They seem to still be playing pretty well. At times they've had some strong performances over the last couple of weeks, but then they've had some absolute stinkers. So it is kind of interesting and difficult to pinpoint exactly which version of the Buffalo Sabres is going to show up on a night-to-night basis. On the flip side, you said yesterday, we got to start factoring in some playoff, expectations here for some of these teams really battling for their lives. And Ottawa is certainly in the mix in the Eastern Conference. They're large, maybe not large, but sizable road favorites tonight. 3.5 implied total minus 152. Obviously, the return of Dylan Cousins to Buffalo tonight. I think he'll probably be a little bit extra motivated. Going to be mostly top six against top six, bottom six against bottom six. So really good matchups here on the Ottawa side of things. Obviously, James Reimer potentially getting the start here for Buffalo piques my interest a little bit more on the Sens side of things. I probably won't get to too much Buffalo tonight. A couple of things here. I'm not 100% sold on their line combinations that are in the chart just because they didn't run official lines this morning, plus Yuri Kulich is a game-time decision. Anton Forsberg's actually been really good as well. His last 10 starts, he's got a 920 save percentage, so not a guy that I'm really going after right now. He's been good enough. The Senators have proven to be defensively. Over their last 10 games, it's gotten a little bit worse, but still pretty good at 5v5. The PKs struggle to touch, but Buffalo is just not a team that I'm overly interested in this spot. I think there's just better spots on tonight's slate that I will end up getting to. Ottawa definitely intrigues me. The top line, they've got reasonable underlying metrics, but they become a little bit cheaper with Fabian Zetterlund up on that top line. I think he brings a nice element to that line, and especially at $3,500, he makes them a lot cheaper at $17,400. Certainly, the line I'm going to get to probably be double the field here. They're about 5% owned. I'm looking at about 10%. Ottawa 2 is another line that I'm really interested in, just because Cousins and Batherson have been quite solid as of late. They're both only 5K. They're both not seeing all that much ownership. Plus, you've got the additional kind of hype here for Dylan Cousins returning to Buffalo makes me interested. David Perron, not a whole lot of shot volume, not a whole lot of a floor to speak of, so I'm pretty comfortable leaving him off. But given as good as these matchups project to be for the Ottawa top six, the underlying metrics are good enough, both above average. 5 goals per 64. Ottawa 2 is definitely interesting. Ottawa 3 plays a little bit more, but their matchup is a lot worse tonight. So I'll probably just stick to that Cousins Batherson mini and get a little bit of Ottawa 1 in the mix as well, and mostly be fading Buffalo. What are your thoughts on this one, Zachary?
With his Ottawa side of things, most of my pardon me.
Sorry, you were lagging, and then it didn't come through for me, and then I was like, he's not talking back. But there you go, we're back.
Damn you, internet! Damn you! Anyways, for me, I think my interest in Ottawa largely just kind of comes around this power play unit for them. They look to be in a great spot here tonight with the best matchup on this slate overall. Buffalo, a team struggling to stay out of the penalty box, their penalty kill. Not been great as of late, 24th ranked over the last 10 games. So what does that look like for me? Stützle, Tkachuk, Sanderson mini stacks, Cousins, Batherson, Sanderson mini stacks. That's kind of the route that I'm going to be going. Sanderson plays all of his minutes, or a lot of his minutes at 5-on-5, I should say, with those top 6 guys. So I think that's kind of the way that I'm going to be building around this Ottawa side of things. I think I'll have, a little bit of Perron mixed in there, maybe a little bit of Zetterlund on some Ottawa 1 stacks. But I think I'm comfortable getting, 5-10% of each of these lines here, and probably an onslaught power play stack as well. It seems like a good spot to kind of take advantage of this power play matchup here. I think that's the way that I'll be going. I might throw a dart on that Ottawa 3 line. They're probably a little more expensive than I'm really comfortable playing them at. But the truth of the matter is that really Greg and Shane Pinto both have had some success against Buffalo, each of them with 1 goal and 4 points in 6 games played. And then Claude Giroux, obviously been around for a million years at this point in the NHL, 18 goals and 54 points in 59 games against the Sabres. This Buffalo side of things, I don't really know where to go with them. I can never really seem to get them right. I don't know if I'll get there on this top line tonight. Might be a little bit of a sprinkle for me, but I think there's some other spots that I like a lot better on this slate.
Yeah, I've almost completed the chart fix I have for anybody that's using the charts on their own. Our charts still need a bit of an update here, but let's move on to game number 2, Tampa 3. Game number 3, Tampa and Pittsburgh. Just going back to the Ottawa power play for a second. I mean, just absolutely juicy matchup here tonight, right? Like, looks so good. Certainly interested. Let's just bring up the power play. I was a little bit caught off guard there. Tkachuk, Stützle, and then you got Cousins, Batherson. You can kind of go, like you said, with either option. Jake Sanderson looks like a really strong play tonight as well. Okay, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay with the highest implied total, or tied for the highest implied total of the night at 3.9, minus 279 favorites here against the Penguins. The Penguins have been a little bit better as of late, but their defensive numbers still lagging behind, right? Like, they've been bailed out by the goaltending as of late, especially at 5-5, not so much on the PK. But this looks like a spot for Tampa Bay, who feel like they've been kind of just spinning their wheels as of late, maybe not playing as well as they would like to be playing at this time of the year, but the underlying metrics are still pretty solid. They're probably due for some positive regression on the power play tonight as well. So they obviously look to be in a really good spot. Then you factor in that they're going to kind of put their lines back together the way that we've seen most of the season. We've seen Gensel, Point, Kucherov have loads this season. Cirelli and Hagel have maybe not been quite as good since the Four Nations break, but they still really good numbers on the season. Maybe not quite as much finishing as you'd like to see with Nick Paul on that line, but they've been solid enough. The number one matchup overall tonight. They're going to go head to head with that Sidney Crosby line, which we know has struggled defensively this season. So pretty good matchup for Tampa too. I think they're kind of an interesting dart throw and a way to get a little bit different. As you see here in terms of ownership tonight, Tampa Bay 1 comes out as the highest, a little bit less ownership coming in on Tampa Bay 2. So again, not a way to get completely different from the field, but to get away off that Tampa 1 chalk a hair to go with Hagel and Shirley. So best matchup overall, they grade out 15th best overall. Tampa 1 grades out 8th best, 22,700. Again, the matchup is good. The underlying metrics really, really solid as well. So I like both these lines plenty. I have, no issues getting to them in a chalky spot here. The power play has, I mentioned, been, probably due for some positive regression. Really good matchup for that to kind of set in tonight against the Penguins penalty kill at 27th over their last 10 games. So on the Penguin side of things, it's kind of always just that one line. Pittsburgh 1, they grade out well. They're not seeing much ownership. I think that they're an interesting get different spot tonight, as they kind of always are. I just don't know if I'm going to get there with the power play matchup being pretty difficult. The Tampa Bay Lightning pretty solid. Defensively at 5v5, probably not a night for Pittsburgh 1 for me, but they're always, a way to get a little bit different, and they seem to be getting there on pretty much every slate right now. So I don't hate it if you're trying to get super different in a deep tournament at 2% ownership. They always will kind of grade out well and are worth considering, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm building 20 tonight, so I don't think I'll have any issue getting, 5% of this Pittsburgh 1 in line in here. I mean, 31% of the ice time. They just play so much out there. These three guys have had some success against Tampa in their career, and I think, when you look at the last 10 game charts there too, there's been some struggles in the crease for the Tampa Bay Lightning here as of late over the last 10 games, just an 889 save percentage at 5-on-5. So this seems like a pretty nice spot to maybe get yourself a little bit different. If you are playing in some of these deeper tournaments, certainly wouldn't really be a small field play or a single entry play or anything like that going Pittsburgh 1. But I don't mind the idea of mixing them in a little bit into the lines tonight for me.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, charts are completed. We can focus on the rest of the show. Let's move on to game number 4. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Philadelphia Flyers. Toronto 3.5 implied total, minus 249 home favorites tonight, going up against the Flyers team that's really been struggling as of late. Just not a whole lot going offensively for either of these teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs it's been kind of like this for a while now, really not generating a whole lot at 5. Look at this Flyers power play, though. That's insane. They haven't scored a single 5-on-4 goal in 10 games. Just absolutely disastrous. And they do draw a nice power play matchup tonight because the Leafs have struggled on the PK as of late, but this is just not a good matchup. I like Anthony Stolarz tonight. I don't know how much volume he's going to end up seeing, but he seems to make some sense. I think that, this Philadelphia team with the offense looking the way that it is right now, it's pretty bleak. One thing that is worth noting, if you want to just kind of get super creative tonight and go off the board, and if you want to target the Flyers power play, they are going with a 5 forward top power play unit tonight to really kind of change things up. But I don't think that there's really all that much talent on this unit that's makes me worth all that interested. So yes, they do have a nice matchup overall, but not really something that I'm all that excited about. Toronto has been an interesting case, especially for us, because they continue to grade out poorly in the charts for the most part because they're not generating anything at 5v5, but they've been making up for that on the power play. It's just been scorching hot. They've got the number 1 power play over the last 10 games up against the 18th ranked PK. It's the 3rd best advantage tonight. When you take a look at the 5v5 matchup tonight, the Tavares line's got the slightly better matchup than the Matthews line. And the Tavares line always piques my interest when they move Bobby McMahon up, which will be the case tonight. And I think getting to some Toronto 2 tonight is definitely a play that I'm looking at. They're only seeing 3% ownership, 3% for Willie. Tavares at 4%. McMahon is just under 3%. 18,100, really no ownership to speak of. This is a Flyers team that's certainly gettable. So Toronto 2 is a really nice low-owned play tonight, in my opinion. Toronto 1 makes some sense as well. They're a little bit higher owned, but I just think I'm going to stick with the value here of Toronto 2 a little bit more than Toronto 1, and then hopefully Tavares and Willie are the guys that are converting on the power play tonight. What are your thoughts here on the Leafs and Flyers?
Yeah, I'll be getting there on this Toronto side of things for sure. Again, as is kind of the norm for me, if I feel that Toronto 1 is a little bit lower owned, I have no problem getting there. So I think that's a spot here tonight that I'll be definitely sprinkling in. Matthews, obviously the guy that continues to drive the engine there. There just hasn't been a ton of shot volume from a guy like Mitch Marner here as of late. Really not generating a whole lot of quality looks or anything like that either. So, I'd almost consider going with a Matthew mini stack on that top line. I think that's a decent route to go here on the slate tonight. But I also agree that, I got some interest here in this second line too. Bobby McManny's been a volume shooter all season long. Still maintaining some decent enough volume here as of late, playing more of a depth role, 7.3 shots on goal per hour over his last 20 games. But I do like the look of this second line when they're loaded up here, and they are in a really low owned spot, grading out as the 6th best overall to target on this slate tonight. I'll definitely be getting over the field here on this Toronto 2 side of things, probably meeting the field on Toronto 1.
Yeah, and Tavares has been really good as of late. If you look at their last 10 games, Austin Matthews obviously leads the way with 15.2 DraftKings points per game. But Nylander at 12.9 and Tavares at 12 even over their last 10. They've been, right there neck and neck with Matthews. They're a lot cheaper, and the matchup's a little bit better tonight as well. So I like Toronto 2 quite a bit. For me, I'm not going to get to any Philadelphia the way things have been going there. Okay, Winnipeg and Washington. I want to just fact check myself here because I think that's important to do so in today's day and age, and just take a look and make sure I wasn't lying. So yes, it was a 5-4 game instead of 6-5. I was so close. And Connor Hellebuck versus Logan Thompson in that game. I remember talking about it and saying this looks like it's super low scoring with these two goalies. It'll probably end up being a high scoring game. That ended up being the case. Winnipeg 3.1 implied total, minus 138. Home favorites tonight, Washington at 2.7 on the road. Matchup wise, it's pretty bleak on both sides outside of what Winnipeg 2's see. They're going to see a lot of the Ovechkin line tonight. But as I mentioned off the top, no Gabe Vilardi tonight is going to be kind of interesting because Alex Iafallo will take his spot on the top line with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, but Iafallo will also be taking his spot on the top power play unit as well, which is super interesting exposure for him, kind of out of the blue here, moving up from the 4th line to the top line. So kind of from the basement to the penthouse here for Alex Iafallo. Again, their underlying metrics with Iafallo, this is a line that played together quite a bit last year. Not that great. So I don't think he's like an amazing, I don't think that full stacking this line is an amazing play, but I do think Iafallo obviously represents some pretty reasonable value. How much is he again? $3,100. So really interesting value play for me tonight. You're obviously expecting to see a little bit more ice time out of him, really elite usage on that top line, top power play unit. I don't know how much full Winnipeg 1 I'm going to get to, maybe 5%, but like 15% Iafallo probably. Again, with this not new pricing, it is kind of difficult to find forward values, and Iafallo sticks out like a sore thumb in that regard tonight. But additionally, they're going to shuffle up their lines basically across the board here. Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton will be with Nick Ehlers, and then Cole Perfetti drops down with Nemestikov and Niederreiter. I don't know how to feel about that, to be honest with you. Like the underlying metrics here for the Lowry line, not that great. The underlying metrics for the Nemestikov line without Ehlers, not that great. So I don't think I'm going to get to a ton of Winnipeg at all tonight outside of like Iafallo. And I probably won't get to much Washington either. Like we talked about this last time these two teams met up. Like it should be low scoring, and I think that that's probably going to end up being the case tonight, but we shall see. Matchup-wise for the Capitals, a little bit better for Washington 2 than Washington 1. They're going to see a little bit more of Winnipeg 1 tonight. So if you want to go with the Washington route, Washington 2 looks like the play, and that's McMichael, Dubois, and Tom Wilson. They've probably been the best trio for the Capitals as of late. If I recall correctly, let's take a look here at the DraftKings points per game. So Tom Wilson leads the way, followed by Protas, Dubois, and McMichael. So, all 4 of those guys averaging over 10 DraftKings points per game over the last 10. But that second line's really been the better of the 2 lines as of late. They draw a better matchup tonight. They're only 14,900 and seeing no ownership. It's just, can you stomach playing them against Connor Hellebuck?
Yeah, and I think that's the definite concern there when it comes to this Washington side of things. I think for me, Winnipeg, I've got some interest there. I'll mix in some of that top line. I like the look of Iafallo up there. Obviously, a real salary saver up there with Scheifele and Connor. I think I'll probably get to 5-10% of that line. I feel okay about getting to a little bit of this second line as well for Winnipeg. Nick Ehlers just continuing to be a strong play on a pretty consistent basis. $5,900. You got a great floor there with 9.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time, 1.4 goals over his last 20 per hour. Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton. There's some salary saver guys similar to Carolina 3 for me. So I think I'll be getting there a little bit. This Washington side of things, I really have a hard time full stacking this team or this lineup right now. I think I'll probably get there at like 5% on that second line and probably some Alex Ovechkin one-offs. I mean, he's projecting for just 1% ownership here tonight. In his career against Winnipeg, 56 goals, 101 points in 74 games played. So he's been great. He's I think like 7 goals back of tying the record right now, 8 for passing. He's just so much shot volume here right now as of late. He's just, I think, a great play on pretty much any slate right now. So I'm okay getting there a little bit on this game. I don't think it'll be anything too crazy, but the prices feel pretty reasonable for full stacks here. And the offense has been there as of late for this Washington side of things as well. Even with their power play really struggling. So some really solid 5-on-5 production from them. Obviously a hard matchup here. Definitely a tough matchup for the Ovechkin line, but hey, maybe he finds a way to get one by tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like the Jets have been maybe not their best version as of late, the best version of themselves. Like the defensive metrics still really good. Hellebuck's had some kind of leakier performances, I would say, like, relative to what we've seen from him the rest of the season. It hasn't been, quite as sharp coming out of the Four Nations. So in his last 8 games, he has an .898 save percentage. So he's been a little bit more gettable. To me, the Washington 2 thing comes down to the fact that they've been playing well and just that they're really, really affordable with no ownership tonight. So kind of difficult to find like pretty solid fourth, $5,000 plays, and they look to be okay enough. Despite, like I said, the defensive metrics for Winnipeg continue to be outstanding. Struggling to touch on the PK, but Washington's power play really hasn't been good enough to take advantage. Washington probably also due for some some negative regression at 5v5, scoring 1.05 goals scored above expected over their last 10 games. So not a game that I have a ton of interest in, but I think there's some enough interesting spots to at least consider tonight. St. Louis and Montreal. St. Louis are -151 home favorites tonight. The Canadiens 2.7 implied total 136 road underdogs. Lowest event game of the night, but really, really good matchup here for the Robert Thomas line. They're going to go head-to-head with Nick Suzuki's line. Then it's going to be kind of middle 6 against middle 6, maybe with a little bit of St. Louis 2 up against Montreal 2. But overall, not great matchups on the Montreal Canadian side of things. But St. Louis 1 sets up pretty nicely in this matchup. Really solid offensive numbers, nothing out, extravagant, but they've been really, really good. And we know this offense has just been humming as of late. Probably, a little bit fortunate, right? Like they're shooting 11% at 5v5, which is not crazy, but 30% on the power play is pretty wild. But the Canadiens struggling on the PK, struggling to defend at 5v5 as well. So this sets up pretty nicely for a St. Louis offense that's been feeling themselves as of late. St. Louis 2 grades out slightly ahead of St. Louis 1. I probably still, though, prefer St. Louis 1, Neighbors, Thomas, and Bolduc, but I don't mind if you get to Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou either. I think both are strong plays. I feel like both these lines have been playing well as of late. I just want to pull up their last 10 games here, just so I'm 100% certain. So yeah, Kyrou, Holloway, and Schenn have been the ones carrying the water as of late. Kyrou averaging 12.8 DraftKings points per game, 11.5 for Holloway, and 10.0 for Schenn. The second line of Neighbors, the top line of Neighbors, Bolduc, and Thomas, all about 8 DraftKings points per game. So, you get a little bit of salary relief with that top line. You get maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling with that second line, and then you get a slightly better matchup with St. Louis 1. So kind of pick your poison here, in my opinion. The power play matchup, as I mentioned, is really, really good as well. Their top, they don't really roll like a firm PP1 and PP2. Like if you take a look at the power play chart here, it's the 6th best matchup, but they're about 50-50 with their usage. So there's no real like power play stacking here, but the good news is that you do get some power play correlation here with Thomas and Bolduc. Then obviously you've got Kyrou, Holloway, Schenn all together on the other unit. So you could just kind of confidently stack them at 5v5 and then whatever they kind of correlate on the power play as well, which is a bit of a bonus here. So fairly good looking matchup here for the Blues. Are you going back to the well here?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a Blues truther pretty much all this season. I've been playing a lot of them. Love the look of this second line. I mean, they're the one that I really keep going back to more so than that top line. Looks to be a really solid spot here. You want to talk about playoff motivation. Both of these teams, according to hockeyviz.com, coming in Montreal 42% chance to make the playoffs, St. Louis 40% chance. Either of these teams, if they get a win in regulation, it's like a 9 or a 10% boost to their playoff chances. So suddenly they go from being sub 50% to up above 50% if they get a win in regulation. So this seems like a really good game environment, I think, for some offense to come. So for me, I have no issue getting to the St. Louis top six. 10% on that on each of those top two lines is probably the way that I'm going to go, and probably 10% on this Montreal top line as well. I mean, Cole Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky have been rock solid as of late here for Montreal, except for when you played Cole Caulfield a couple of days ago. So sorry about that one. The good news, though, is if you are a Cole Caulfield fan, 7 games played against the Blues in his career, 6 goals and 8 points. So, hey, maybe tonight's a night you can get back into the win column with a Montreal 1 stack. I'll certainly be getting there. I've been playing them quite a bit here lately as well. So, to me, this is a game that I really like. Obviously, it looks like a strong matchup here for the Blues on the power play. They do split up their power play ice time, where that second unit with the St. Louis 2 stack, the full stack there with Justin Falk on the blue line, actually playing 52% of the power play minutes over the last 10 games. So to me, that's kind of my preferred route here. I think is through St. Louis 2. Like I said, though, I'll definitely be mixing in a little bit of that top line. Robert Thomas, great against the Habs in his career, 4 goals, 9 points in 7 games played. Seems like a pretty decent spot here for this St. Louis side.
Yeah, I'm a little bit probably gonna be a little bit more conservative with Montreal. I never seem to get them right. Really difficult matchup here. St. Louis has been rock solid defensively. PK's been unbelievable. Jordan Binnington's been fine since the Four Nations face-off. Obviously got a heavy workload there. You could expect maybe some fatigue after that tournament, but he's been fine. 8-2 in his 10 starts. He's only got a .906 save percentage, but it's been good enough. He's it's probably a little bit dropped because he's had 2 like real ugly performances in that mix, but like for the most part, he's been pretty solid. So I'll probably mix in 5% Montreal 1 because they always seem to either do nothing or just kind of nuke a slate. All 3 of them, as you mentioned, have been really, really good. Slavkovsky actually leads the way, 12.8 DraftKings points per game over his last 10. Suzuki at 12.1 and Caulfield at 11.2 at $6,300. So they're pretty affordable. Not seeing much ownership. One thing worth mentioning too, we've seen a little bit more of like Nick Suzuki on both power play units as of late as well, which provides a little bit of extra value there for him. Okay, Minnesota and Vegas. I think we can pretty confidently just cross off Minnesota. I saw through it last night. I saw through the charts. I did say on the show that I'll probably get to a little bit Minnesota anyway, just a hair. I ended up playing literally 0. So I'm glad I ended up doing that. When I started building, I'm like, I just can't do this. So they grade out well again, and I'm just going to say it again for the sake of the charts. The matchup is okay, but what is boosting them is the fact that they're playing a shitload, and their underlying metrics are good. Like they should conceivably be putting up some offense, and they have had okay nights at times, but tail end of a back-to-back here. This offense is just putrid at 5v5. The power play matchup is okay up against a Vegas PK that has been struggling. It is the still only the 9th best power play advantage and also projected for the least power play time tonight. So I have a very difficult time getting to Minnesota despite their grade in the charts. Obviously, the second half of back-to-back as well isn't helping things. Vegas, on the other hand, with Marc-Andre Fleury getting the start, I think is a little bit more interesting, right? Like Philip Gustafsson has been red hot, but I don't mind getting to Vegas. It is worth noting, though, that Tomas Hertl is out. So that really kind of just breaks my heart because I've been getting to Vegas to almost every single slate for like months, right? As of late, been really, really good. Nick Waugh expected to move up in his spot with Dorofeyev and Brandon Saad. I think it opens up a little bit of value there, but they have the worst matchup of the group tonight. But the underlying metrics here still fairly solid for that group. Vegas 2, where would they be in the charts? VGK 2, 38, but $3,200 for Saad, $3,500 for Nick Waugh, and 5,300 for Dorofeyev. So they're only 12,000. I think it's interesting enough. Waugh has always kind of been a good player when he's been given the opportunities. We played him a bunch earlier in the year when he was moved up the lineup. I don't mind getting to him when he is, really cheap in an offensive role. He seems to kind of step up for Vegas time and time again. So I'm pretty comfortable getting to that line. We've seen Dorofeyev have a lot of success. Brandon Saad has been fine since arriving as well. So at $12,000, I think they're actually a pretty interesting value option tonight. Barbashev, Eichel, and Stone, I just don't play them as frequently as I probably should. They grade out okay tonight at 17,000. I think there are better plays, right? Like Minnesota, even with Fleury between the pipes, Minnesota's been, really, really good defensively as of late. But power play matchup here for Vegas is obviously solid enough. I'll get to them a little bit, but I'm probably looking more towards just a little bit of VGK2 for some salary relief, and that's kind of the extent of it for me. How about you?
Yeah, I've got pretty middling interest here in this game. I think for me, I'm going to go with like 5% mini 1, 5% Vegas 1, and probably like 10% Vegas 2. When you look at just the value that these top two lines are providing for Vegas, Vegas 2 with the 6th best value projection on the slate, and Vegas 1 with the 8th best. Obviously not the greatest, 5-on-5 scores or anything like that here for this slate. But it seems like decent enough plays solely off the projections. The matchups are fairly solid for this Vegas side of things as well. To me, the issue is it just doesn't feel like a very high scoring game environment. I mean, neither of these teams really have anything to play for. Their playoff spots are pretty much all locked up here. So to me, it feels like a lower scoring game, but I think there's a couple of angles that are kind of interesting. You talk about the power play being pretty decent here for Minnesota over their last 10. Vegas's penalty kill has been not great here over the last 10 games. Minnesota won full correlation on the top power play unit. Don't think I'll be playing any Brock Faber because he seems to just, kind of just play cardio out there. He's not really generating, a whole lot of offense or shots on goal or block shots or anything. So I think that's why I'll get to like 5% of that Minnesota 1 line. Hope they find some success on the power play tonight, and then mix in a little bit of this Vegas side of things as well. They seem like fairly decent salary saver options. I mean, Vegas 2, $12,000 to full stack, and Vegas 1 at 17,100 is a pretty nice price point too. Barbashev's price has really, really come down here. I remember months ago when he was like 55, 5,600 bucks, getting up to that 6K range. So at $3,600, I'm fine getting a little Barbashev here tonight.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning, like, the power play matchup for Vegas is really, really good, right? Second best power play against the 20th ranked PK. The reason it only ranks 7th is because both these teams are very disciplined and don't draw a lot of penalties. So they're only projected for minimal amount of power plays. So that's why I have a hard time fully investing in these power plays. But Jim B likes Vegas 1 plus Dorofeyev, like, for a little bit of power play stacking. I don't mind that. It is worth mentioning these two teams have met twice this year. Vegas has won both 4-2 and 3-1. Victor Olofsson had 2 goals, and Jack Eichel had 2 assists in the one game when they were together on the top line. So Vegas 1 had some success in that first game, and then in the second game, Dorofeyev had 2 goals and 1 assist. Tomas Hertl had a goal and an assist. So Vegas 2 found some success. Also worth mentioning is Shea Theodore could potentially return to the lineup tonight. He is a game time decision. Obviously, that would provide a bit of a boost on the blue line. Also, another boost to that power play unit that's been playing very well. This is not the defenseman. Theodore is $5,800, but will probably come with extremely low ownership tonight if he ends up being in the lineup. So if you're stacking Vegas power play, just keep an eye on that in warmups. I would probably build around Theodore and then pivot to Hanifin if I had to later. Okay, next game we've got Detroit and Colorado. Used to be one of the best rivalries in hockey. Red Wings have not been very good for very long. So, they're also in the Eastern Conference now, so they don't see as much of each other. But it's always fun to see these two teams go head-to-head, at least for me as a Red Wings fan. Maybe not so much tonight, though, in Detroit or in Colorado on the second half of a back-to-back. They had like 4 shots through 2 periods last night. I think it was actually 5. As I mentioned earlier, though, the ice was just shit last night. Like, Utah didn't generate much either. So the game stacks were kind of zapped by some shitty ice quality last night, unfortunately. It still kind of worked out right. Gunther scored early. It helped things, helped our case there if you played Utah too, but the rest of it was kind of middling. Colorado 1 should be in a much better spot tonight. Same with Colorado 2. Matchups are okay. Underlying metrics are very good. Colorado 2 with the Chushkin was not working. In 2 games with Netjas and Lehkonen down there, the underlying metrics have been fantastic. So Colorado is kind of turning into what we thought they might turn into when they traded for Nelson at the deadline. We thought that the Nichushkin Nelson thing would work out, and they would be, you'd have 2 options when targeting Colorado. it's starting to turn into that. So Colorado won, not surprising. Grades out is the best line to target tonight. Drouin just $4,200, looks like a nice salary saver. McKinnon at $9K is projected to be the highest owned forward on the slate, and then Nichushkin 6,600 is a great play pretty much regardless of his price as of late. Colorado 2, though, I think is super interesting as well. Where do they grade out? I can't see them. They're 11th. Yeah. So they're 17,600. So you can save a little bit of salary there. 5,100 for Lehkonen, Nelson at 5,500, and Netchest at 7K. The problem with Colorado 2 is that Lehkonen and Nelson are now on power play 2. And you get full correlation out of Colorado 1 on the top power play unit. And that top power play unit is so important tonight. That Red Wings PK continues to be an absolute travesty, the worst in the league. So it ends up still being only the second best matchup on the slate, but you could argue it's the best. It's a Colorado power play that's been really, really good. So I love McKinnon. I love Makar, Nichushkin, Drouin, Netchast. Like I'm more focused on the top line in this power play unit for this specific matchup. I think in the future, when it's more of a 5v5 game, I will take a longer look at Colorado 2. But for this specific game, I think Colorado 1 is a much better play. That's not to say that I won't mix some Colorado 2 in, but I'll probably be like 3x my exposure on Colorado 1 than I will be Colorado 2.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's pretty much the way that I'm going to be kind of playing this spot too. Colorado looks to be in just a tremendous spot here. That top line coming in with 16% ownership here tonight. I'll probably get up to 20 on that, and I'll easily be double the field here on this second line as well. Colorado going to be definitely a core building block for me here tonight. Jonathan Drouin up on that top line, $4,200 helps take that salary down in a pretty significant way for that line as a whole. Just $19,800 to full stack. Colorado 1, like sign me up, man. That feels great. And Jonathan Drouin has been really productive as of late. Nothing really in terms of shot volume or block volume, but man, he's got 3 points per hour over his last 20 games. Bit of a shooting heater here for sure, but he's still putting up a good number of assists. And over his career, he's had a lot of success against Detroit. I mean, 6 goals and 23 points in 22 games played or 23 games played. So point per game over his career. This looks like a great spot here. Martin Netchast coming in at just 2.5% ownership tonight feels egregiously low, especially because he is on that top power play unit, right? So I'll be getting a little different with some of these, Colorado builds tonight and stacking around these power plays. But, this is a team where, like I talked earlier about like Carolina 3, talked about Winnipeg 2, talked about Vegas 2 as like those salary saver options. And I think those are the lines that you can pair with this Colorado top 6 pretty easily here on this slate. So looks like a really, really interesting spot to build around here tonight. So lots of interest on this Colorado side for me. In terms of Detroit, just don't think that I'll be getting there here tonight. Feels pretty bleak for them. Feels like a tough matchup. Obviously, teams that are on the second half of a back-to-back traditionally only win like 45% of their games, and that
especially
dips down
going to
like
altitude.
Yeah, exactly. And that dips down to like 42% when they're on the second half of a back-to-back with travel involved. So feels really tough. I don't think I'll be getting to any Detroit here. Probably just going to cross them off entirely.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to Colorado just for a second. Jonathan Drouin specifically, 5 of his 11 points, so nearly half of his points since the Four Nations break have come on the power play as well. So he's been a bit of a power play merchant as of late. Not a guy that's going to have a ton of shot volume, but he's probably going to factor in on the power play tonight with as bad as the Red Wings PK is. Cale Makar has been unbelievable as of late for the last 10. McKinnon, 16 DraftKings points per game over his last 10, and Nichushkin at 12.4. So they have been unbelievable. Detroit, I probably will cross them off pretty much as well. If I was going to play, it's still going to be Detroit too. Their underlying metrics continue to be solid. DeBrincat, Kane, but only, ice be damned last night. Like they weren't only able to muster like 11 shots. So probably not going to have a lot of success against a Colorado team that's playing very, very well defensively. The Avs PK struggling, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough for Detroit to be a difference maker this evening. Unfortunately, it'd be nice to see them go in and steal a W, help their playoff chances immensely, but I just don't know if that's going to be the case. Calgary hosts the Seattle Kraken tonight. They're -135 home favorites, 2.1 implied total, 2.7 Seattle. I just can't get Seattle right, so I'm just probably never going to play them again. Calgary at home, really, really solid defensively. Dustin Wolf at home, really, really good goaltender. Matchups for the Calgary side looks a lot more intriguing than the Seattle side. There are new lines for Calgary. Let's get to those here in a second. So Zari back from suspension with Kadri, Pospisil. They've played a lot together last year, not so much this year. Huberdeau, Frost, Coronado have seen a decent amount of time together so far this year. Farabee, Sharangovich, Coleman on that third line. Matchup-wise, it's better for the top line, but the Calgary second line actually has by far the best offensive metrics of the group. So that Huberdeau line, really, really good offensive metrics. They grade out tremendously well in the charts at 5th best overall, just $15,100, just 4.6%. Matt Coronado comes in on a bit of a heater. He's on a 4-game goal streak, if I recall correctly. Let me just double check my numbers here. 3-game goal streak, but he has 4 goals in those 3 games. The shot volume has continued to be really, really solid for him. Morgan Frost, not doing a ton since arriving in Calgary, but I mean, he's in a good spot tonight at a pretty affordable price tag on a line that's generated a lot of quality looks. 15,100 full stack. I'm not going to be, going crazy on this tonight, but I do think that they represent a pretty good value given the fact that the matchup is quite solid. Going to see a lot of Seattle 3 tonight. Not great defensive metrics there. Really strong offensive numbers from Calgary too. The power play matchup overall is pretty bleak. Calgary doesn't do a whole lot on the power play, but if they do find some success, you've got all 3 of them correlated on that top power play unit. So that's the line that I have interest in from the Calgary side. I'm just not going to get to Seattle. You don't see a Seattle line until 31st. Dustin Wolf at home. I'll just, whatever. If Seattle beats me tonight, I'll just be like, yep, another night where I didn't get Seattle right. So,
yeah, I have a hard time imagining Seattle is going to break the slate wide open tonight. Maybe because I'm saying that, maybe I'm going to have to get to a little bit of that top line just because they are drawing, 8.5% ownership, but it doesn't feel great. That's for sure. I think what's interesting for me here is this Calgary side of this game for sure. Pretty low ownership here in the top 6. Obviously they're not expensive lines to full stack. Calgary 2, 15,100 and Calgary 1, $200 cheaper. You want to talk about playoff implications. Obviously Seattle totally cooked. The Calgary Flames entering tonight with a 33% chance to make the playoffs according to HockeyViz. Win in regulation boost that by 9%. So this is going to be a highly motivated Calgary Flames team here that's going to want to come in and play a great game. They obviously play their best at home ice. That's where they are here tonight. Dustin Wolf in the net, like you mentioned. Got a lot of interest in this Calgary side of things, probably a little bit more than I should. But it does feel like Calgary too. Look like a new look Calgary too, I guess. No Backlund, no Coleman there. But I kind of like the look of these 3 here. I mean, they've been great together as of late. Generating a whole lot of offense, and it seems like a really nice spot for this Calgary Flames team as a whole. That second line of the Flames going to be spending most of their time going up against the third line of the Kraken. The defensive metrics have been pretty bleak for them here as of late, but they have done a really good job of suppressing goals. So maybe they're due for some regression to the mean in terms of their goal against and expected goal against numbers. So I'll probably get to 10% for both of these top 2 lines on the Flames, which is probably a little bit more than I'm actually comfortable with. But the motivation's there. They're on home ice. It seems like a good enough spot to mix them in. And again, they're cheap. So it's pretty easy to kind of find ways to get them mixed into some of these more expensive lines.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you that I'm probably more interested than I should be. Still a team that doesn't score a lot of goals, but I think it's a good chart play tonight. They're not going to see a lot of ownership. They are cheap. If you want to play devil's advocate here, these teams have met 3 times this year. It was a 2-1 Seattle overtime win. It was a 3-2 Calgary win and a 3-2 overtime Seattle win. So not a lot of goal scoring, as you might imagine, between these 2 teams this season. Power play matchups, as I think I brought them up already, both pretty bleak. We might as well stick here for LA and New York as well. Horrendous power play matchups for both sides. Both power plays pretty bad. Both penalty kills kind of middle of the pack. LA 3.2 implied total, 2.5 for the Rangers, minus 162 home favorites for LA. The Rangers go with some crazy looking lines tonight, at least expected to. Offman moves up with Trocheck, Panarin. Brodzinski moves up with Miller and Lafreniere. As Zibanejad moves down with Kreider and Will Cooley. Matchups in this one couldn't possibly be any worse for the New York Rangers. Let's just take a look at the defensive numbers of the Kings. Holy shit. They have found something with these trios, man. I don't know what Anze Kopitar can do defensively, but he has turned an Andrei Kuzmenko line into a defensive powerhouse. So pretty impressive stuff there. When we take a look at the team trends here, you see why, right? I mean, this team has just been so good defensively. 1.2 goals against per 60 in their last 10 games. They're just tremendous on home ice. The penalty kill has been good enough. The Rangers' power play has been anemic. The Rangers can't generate anything offensively. I will be playing 0 New York Rangers tonight. On the LA Kings side of things, I think the one thing that they've done is they've given us kind of one line to target, at least from my perspective. I've been playing LA2 a ton, basically fading everybody else. LA3 is always a decent value option. One thing to consider tonight, if you're planning on playing LA3, Trevor Moore is a game time decision. If he's in, big boost. If he's out, I'm not playing a line with Trevor Lewis on it in 2025. So probably in 20 whatever, I would have never played Trevor Lewis. So book him for a goal tonight. But yeah, LA2 or bust for me in this game. The matchup is good for all four of these lines. So if you want to get to the other LA lines, like I said, LA3 when Moore is in is a strong value. You'll see basically no ownership on him, obviously, with that being the last game of the night. So it's kind of an interesting play if you want to get there because their underlying metrics are insane with him. LA1 though, just not a whole lot going offensively. So LA2 grades out 9th best, by far and away the best line. Only $15,300 too. LaFerriere has been great as of late. Looks like one of the best value options on the entire slate at $3,500. We've seen a lot of good stuff out of Fiala and Byfield for the most part as of late. If you take a look at this team as a whole, last 10 games, Byfield leads the way with 11.3 DraftKings points, Fiala at 8.6, and then LaFerriere at about 6.5. But LaFerriere, really good shot volume. Some block volume as well. Probably due for some goals, but the shot volume still remains pretty strong. I don't mind them as a value option at $15,300. What about you? And before I get your full breakdown of this game, would you rather play Calgary 2 at $15,100 or LA 2 at $15,300?
Yeah, definitely LA2. Definitely LA2. So that kind of tells you where I'm at with them here tonight. If I'm going to be getting to like 10% Calgary 2 here on this slate, what does that mean for my LAK2 ownership? Probably going to be around the same mark, 10-15%. I have no issue getting there. I got a LaFerriere one off. Actually just went and bet on a Trevor Lewis anytime goal and first goal score tonight. Threw down a couple of bucks. So shout out for that call right there. So I'm going to have to mix in a little LA3 here with Trevor Lewis scoring a goal tonight. So I'm not missing out on another one, Brock. You call these too often. So, yeah, I'm pretty much crossing out this Rangers side of things here. For the Kings side of things, my interest is mainly around that second line. Just can't convince me to play that top line yet. Maybe mix in a little bit of that third line.
Yeah, like Kuzmenko hasn't really done a whole lot. And he's still $5,300. So I don't mind Kempe one-offs, but like I won't full stack that line. If you missed it, the DFO DFS Discord, I said yesterday that Pius Suter and first goal was a lock at plus 2,000 and he scored the first goal. So if you were in the DFO DFS Discord, you could have had a 20-1 last night on PS2 the first goal. I got it. I don't know if anybody tailed it, but if you were there, you would have had the opportunity. If you're not there, you can't tail those things. So Trevor Lewis first goal tonight is probably what, 40-1? Got to be at least
22-1.
22 23-1 for Trevor Lewis. Wow, PS2 was a great bet last night then. Okay. I think that's the first goal I've ever hit in my life, so I'm going to be pretty happy about it for a while. I honestly never bet them. I think they're outrageous, but last night, let's go lucky. Okay, defenseman tonight, Mackenzie Weegar pairs really nicely with that Calgary second line. I don't mind him at $5,900. Been playing pretty well. He'll be back in the lineup tonight for them. Alex Carrier, Owen Power, both grade out pretty well, mid 3Ks. Cale Fleury grades out extremely well. Just a lot of block volume in terms of a value at $2,500. Kevin Ball playing 21 minutes plus at $2,800. A lot of kind of block volume there from him as well. Not too shabby. Dmitry Orlov 3K is really interesting. Our Mike Riley play yesterday absolutely nuked, by the way. Boy, not a whole lot here, hey? I feel like the defensemen have been tough lately. Thomas Chabot at $5,200 is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like Chabot.
Devon Taves, $4,300. Yes.
Sandberg, $4,300, I think is okay.
Yeah, I just wish he was cheaper. He's been so good though. Carey is always a guy that I get to. Don't even know if Radish should be in the lineup. Boy, who's the field playing this cheap tonight? Gostisbehere, $4,200. Sure. Grizzlick, $3,200. Meh. Fowler, yeah, I can agree there. Blankenberg, he's just always solid, but that's not the best matchup. Ball is getting some ownership tonight. Orlov's seen a decent chunk. Who do you like, Zach?
throwing a name out that's a little bit off the board here. Brent Clark at $4,600, probably a little more expensive than I'd want to play here, but he's starting to see a little bit more minutes as of late and continuing just like he was earlier this year to be really productive in his time on ice. 5 shots on goal per hour, 5.9 blocks per hour over his last 20 games, averaging about 14 minutes a night. I'll probably have him in there with a little bit of that LA ownership here tonight. Caleb Fleury at $2,500, really intriguing to me. 100 minutes played in all situations over his last 20 games, 6.3 shots on goal, 10.4 blocks per hour of ice time. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head on some of these value guys. Probably going to be sitting a lot in that, mid 3K to mid 4K range for me tonight. Uyghur, I think he'll be a pay up option for me for sure. Gonna have to figure out how to get to, 15% Kale McCarr here tonight in a great matchup. That's kind of where I'm looking at tonight.
Yeah, if we take a look just at like the last 10 games, guys that stick out around that 4K range, Dylan Sandberg, 5th most DraftKings points per game over his last 10 games among defensemen tonight. Sam Malinsky's been spectacular as well, $3,500. Got to give him a shout out as well. In terms of just kind of like floor plays for cheap, Cale Fleury, 5.1 floor per game over his last 10. That's only 3 games played for him though. And then Sandberg is 2nd best, Alex Carrier 3rd best, Kevin Ball 4th. David Savard, but he just doesn't play enough. He's had some big games, but he's probably hard to trust. Joel Edmondson 3K. Nick Blankenberg, 3,200. Dmitry Orlov, 3K. Those are the guys to look at. Let's go to the goal. Creased now. We've got Andrei Vasilevsky projected to be the number 1 goalie tonight up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Petr Kochetkov, number 2. I like Vasilevsky. I think that's fine. He should see some decent shot volume. I don't think it's the best matchup ever, but I'd rather play him than Kochetkov. Stolar is probably not going to see enough volume, but he's like a decent cash game play. They should win that game. Blackwood, same thing. Not going to see a lot of shot volume, I don't imagine, although Detroit has shown the ability to rack them up. Anton Forsberg, I think, is a really interesting play tonight. Not going to see a lot of ownership at all. And as I mentioned, 920 save percentage in his last 10 games. He's been solid. And the Sabres have just kind of, they just go dormant some nights. So I actually think that Forsberg in like deep tournaments is super interesting. Dustin Wolf's a great play in my opinion tonight. $7,900, a guy that I've got a lot of interest in. Same with Aiden Hill. He's gonna be the highest on goalie tonight. Nice safe play. Not gonna see a ton of volume though. In terms of dumpster diving tonight, I don't mind maybe taking some swings at like a Logan Thompson, Igor Shesterkin. UC Saros for sure going to see a ton of volume at $6,900. But then when you get down to like the Reimers, Ursons, Talbots, Yaris, it starts to get a little bit dicey. But I think that Igor, Thompson, and Saros are good dumpster divers this evening.
Yeah, I think you covered off the goalies here pretty well. I got a lot of interest in these guys that you mentioned. Just a couple of numbers that we'll throw out here. Anton Forsberg, 10 games played against the Sabres in his career, 4 wins, 248 goals against average, and 920 save percentage. He's been really good, just hasn't been a ton of win equity there. Feels like that could shift here tonight. Igor Shesterkin, obviously we talked about how much we like the LA Kings here tonight, but I think Shesty at $7,400 and like pretty close to a must-win game for the Rangers. 5 games played against the Kings in his career, 4 wins, 290 goals against average, and 922 save percentage. And UC Saros, 16 games against the Hurricanes in his career, just 4 wins, 1 shutout, but a 273 goals against average and 920 save percentage. For some of these cheaper guys that are going to see a lot of this volume, you're not necessarily needing a win for these guys to pay off in these spots. Just need to find a way to allow 3 or less and make a shitload of saves. So I don't mind some of these cheaper options here tonight, but for me, a lot of interest in Vasilevsky. For me, Dustin Wolf, those are guys that I'm going to have a lot of ownership here tonight.
Let's get to today's Hat Trick Pick Challenge. If you want to participate in today's Hat Trick Pick Challenge, all you got to do is drop your Hat Trick Pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. You can pick up some daily face-off swag. If you comment a hat trick pick and somebody scores a hat trick that nobody picked, we'll just raffle it off to anybody who submitted a pick. Also, if you tune in on Friday, we do a raffle of a $50 Nation Gear gift card to anybody that comments in the live chat during the show. So a lot of giveaways here for Nation Gear on the show if you want to pick up some daily face-off swag. I won yesterday's head-to-head, so I will pick first. I will take Trevor Lewis. Just kidding. I will take Valerie Nichushkin. I think I pick him every time Colorado plays.
Love it. Great choice there. I was going to go with Trevor Lewis, but you stole the joke from me. So let's go off the board, kind of, I suppose. Let's go Alex Ovechkin. He's going to get 3 goals closer to the breaking the record tonight.
Oh, man. I hope, like, at least, like, the night he does break it, he scores a hattie. Just, like, 3 bombs on the power play from his office would be so much fun. Let's get to today's DFO, our daily face-off head-to-head. As I mentioned, so yesterday we didn't know who won our last week. It turns out it was you in a very close battle. And then tonight, last night, a very close battle as well, but I took it to bring my record to 41-37. I will say this. We did this last week where we did the lineup first, and then we started talking about things, and then we talked about it after. My lineup, I think, would be a lot different tonight, after the show. Like, my builds are going to look a lot different than this, but I still like Ottawa 2 quite a bit tonight. So I've got the Cousins Batherson mini stack. I got the Sorelli Hagel mini stack. And then I've got the Nichushkin McKinnon mini stack in there as well with Aiden Hill between the pipes to try to lock up a W. Had like just no money left for defensemen. So just 2 punts that I like tonight. Kevin Ball, Mark Del Gaizo. I almost certainly won't be playing this lineup tonight now that I've kind of run through everything. It looks reasonable, but I think there are better options tonight than what I ended up going with. But hopefully it's enough to get me to 42-37 on the season.
Your salary allocations look like a lot of my builds on a regular basis. Jam in the expensive forwards, punt off the defensemen. I love building my lineups that way. For me tonight, I like the way this lineup looks. Probably would have made a couple of little tweaks myself. Obviously wanted to get that Tampa 1 line in there. They grade out really well from a metric standpoint, and their projections are rock solid here tonight. I wanted some Carolina 3 here as well. I was toying around with a full stack, but that felt a little bit scary to me. So I went with the Jordan Stahl, Stanky Leg mini stack there. Alex Laferriere, got him as a one-off option from LA2. They look like they're in a great spot tonight. Andre Vasilevsky in the crease. And then Cale Fleury, $2,500. I mentioned him before. Just interested as a salary saving option there. And then good old Hot Sam Bacho looking okay there at $5,200 tonight.
It's worth mentioning that Cale Fleury is typically in and out of the lineup. So just be mindful that there's a potential for him to come out of the lineup. We believe he will play tonight, but he is a guy that does shuffle in and out. So just keep that in mind. I wouldn't lock him into 100% of your lineups without any pivot options, but keep that in mind. Okay. That's going to do it for this edition of the DFO DFS report. Best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. And before we go, just shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for tonight's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, it does not have to be NHL. It can be any sport. If you want to try something out at RotoGrinders, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Get $20 off your first month. Also, in the description is the link to our DFO DFS Discord. As I mentioned, could have had a Pia Suter 20-1 first goal last night if you're in there. And yeah, that link's in there as well. That's all I got. Anything to add before we go, Zach?
No, that's it.
See you back here tomorrow. Cheers.